Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Holly Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to be able to take a call in the third reading of the Education Amendment Bill on behalf of my colleague Catherine Delahunty, and I'm pleased to report for the benefit of the Honourable John Banks, I'm not wearing any lipstick tonight, so unfortunately he'll have to put his sexism aside and listen to the content of my speech. And Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to be having my say, because I have to say this is one of the most appalling bills to pass through the House in my time so far in Parliament. And basically, at its heart, Mr. Speaker, this bill is a $19 million cup of tea. It's the result of the deal between John Banks and John Key, which allows that member, for a single member in this House, to insist on an unpopular, undemocratic, untransparent law change which no one publicly campaigned for before the election. That's the $19 million cup of tea that we are getting in the form of this bill tonight, and it's yet another example, I think, of this government governing for the benefits of its mates, and in this case its mate John Banks. And what's so abhorrent about this bill, Mr. Speaker? Well, I've got 5 things, and I hope I have time to talk about them all. The first is that there is no requirement for partnership schools, yes, I'll use the terminology partnership schools, to have registered teachers that in their schools. A university degree is apparently enough, perhaps not even that, to teach children, not even that, to teach children in the vital stage of their education. Now, Mr. Speaker, teaching is a highly complex job. It's vitally important, and it's a job that we should value very highly. It's informed by theory, pedagogy, culturally appropriate knowledge, and having the right skills to work with vulnerable learners, none of which is going to be available to people who have not trained as teachers and who are not registered teachers. So this bill is undermining the teaching profession, and it's an experiment, essentially, on our kids with unregistered teachers. Second reason this bill is abhorrent, it's not subject to the Official Information Act. So we've got $19 million of public money being spent on these schools with absolutely no level of public oversight on how that money is spent. There is no transparency, there is no ability for the Ombudsman to investigate complaints about the schools, which I'm sure there will be many of, and it's basically an inexcusable lack of accountability for the use of public money in our school system, Mr. Speaker. Third reason that the bill is abhorrent, it's the use of public money for private profit-making businesses, and it's straight-out corporate welfare, Mr. Speaker. It's handing taxpayer money to private, profit-driven companies to allow them to run schools for profit and to pocket public taxpayer money for profit. They can receive special funding for certain elements of that, including for students with disabilities, but they don't have to provide any level of accountability that that money is actually spent on what they say it's going to be spent on. They can pocket it as profit if they want to, and that's taxpayer-funded public money. Fourth reason that the bill is abhorrent. Well, we heard this today. It's rubbing salt in the wounds of schools that have been closed. And today we heard in question time, first of all, that the Minister couldn't even remember in question time signing her own cabinet paper suggesting that closed schools would be the logical first locations for the new charter or partnership schools. She didn't remember signing that advice, but that was her advice to cabinet. And then when she was questioned about it, she couldn't rule out that she might use closed school sites in Christchurch to open charter schools. After everything else that she has put the school community in Christchurch through, trying to tell them that their schools are irreparably damaged or don't have enough students to stay open, and then closing their schools, she is now telling them that she might allow private, for-profit charter schools to open up on the sites of the schools that she's about to close. Talk about adding insult to injury, Mr. Speaker. Fifth and final reason why this bill is so abhorrent. It's an ideological solution in search of a problem. Mr. Speaker, we have a great public education system in this country, and it delivers some of the best results in the developed world in terms of public education. Now, there is absolutely no evidence, including from the United States, from where this model is imported, that charter schools will actually deliver any better results for those most vulnerable learners that those on the government benches like to trumpet in this debate as though they are going to be solving the problem of inequality in education through the mechanism of charter schools. There's no evidence that that is required and that charter schools actually achieve that. It's already possible to establish special character schools under the Education Act to meet particular community needs. There is no need for this legislation. It's abhorrent, Mr Speaker, and I'm very proud to speak in opposition to it.
Simon O'Connor.
Mr Speaker, thank you for the chance to speak.